What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, going to the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, we have a re-signing. Michael Badgley, he's back. So let's get it started. Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, man, we are back with some Detroit Lions news, man. I guess in a way, you could say the first domino has fallen. Michael Badgley, reportedly, according to the Detroit Lions website, is being re-signed, and according to Bleacher Report, on a one-year deal. Now, the details of this contract are undisclosed. I would assume there's not a ton of guarantees here. And let me make this clear right away. This does not mean whatsoever that this will be the Lions' starting kicker next season. He could be, but that does not necessarily mean that he's going to be the starting kicker next season. I would expect to see multiple kickers come through Detroit, battles through training camp as usual, and then we'll just have to see who it's going to be at that point. But this did make a ton of sense just from the fact that the Lions didn't have a kicker heading into next season as of right now until now. So made a ton of sense to just get somebody under contract again. We don't have the details, but I would assume it's a one-year deal. Probably not a ton of guarantees. Probably could easily get out of this contract. He's just essentially, I think, in a way being brought back to like, hey, let's compete again this offseason, this training camp. Because Michael Badgley's been a pretty good kicker for the Detroit Lions. But the reason that we know there's no guarantee that he'll be our starting kicker next season is because after the 2022 season, which was a solid year for Michael Badgley, 20 of 24 on the season, 33 for 33 on extra points. I guess that's just life as a kicker because for whatever reason he had a couple of missed extra points this past season. We thought that he was the favorite to be the kicker in 2023. And then he wasn't. Then he was cut, and he bounced around to a couple of different teams through the preseason, but didn't really stick anywhere until he landed back with the Lions late in the season. The Lions ultimately ended up going with Riley Patterson, who they traded for. Didn't give up a ton, but they traded for Riley Patterson. They also had John Parker Romo, an XFL kicker who had the big leg, as Dan Campbell described it. He was the wild card. It is free agency. Free agency is underway. We're talking about a re-signing today. And there's a lot of fun to be had currently on BetUS website. So make sure you click that top link in the description because as you can see, there's offers like this. If you go to NFL specials, you can see things like this. Russell Wilson next team by week 1 of the 2024-25 season. There's also ones like this. Tony Pollard next team, if not Dallas Cowboys. And you can bet on what that team would be if it's not going to be the Dallas Cowboys. But I focus on this Russell Wilson one because there's been a lot of talk about it, and I said it yesterday. But I really do think this is more and more interesting the more that I think it out. How about Russell Wilson to the New York Giants? We don't expect it to necessarily be super expensive, and the New York Giants are a team that have already had their backup quarterback have to play multiple times. Would it be crazy if Russell Wilson was just looking for a landing spot and an opportunity to potentially play if they went out and added Russell Wilson? Hey, we wanted to bet $10 on this wager. If you were to bet $10 and he does end up with the New York Giants, as their next team by week 1 next season, you could win $180. So let's place that in. Bam, right there. And there you go. Make sure you click that top link in the description because right now BetUS has an awesome promotion where you can get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Not your first deposit, but your first 3 deposits if you use code JOIN125 up to $2,500. Plus, on top of that, they'll give you a 10% gambler's insurance for your net losses if you are active every 6 months. So there you go. Click that top link. Don't miss out. You can see there's a lot of fun to be had. Free agency's on its way, so get on top of it right now. But Michael Badgley was not our guy going into the year. However, he ended the season as our guy. And again, Michael Badgley had a strong last season. Statistically speaking, 4 for 4 for the Lions in the regular season, on to the postseason, 3 for 3, including a 50-plus yard made field goal against the LA Rams in the playoffs, which was absolutely massive. Looking back at that game, we won that game by a point. LA Rams couldn't get in the field goal range. That field goal that he made from a long way out in a dome, it was a long one. That was a massive field goal, and it could, that could be the difference. He misses that. Maybe we don't go on to the second round. Maybe we don't get to the NFC Championship game. So he had a strong finish. He did have the 2 missed extra points, both against Minnesota. But I guess that's just life of a kicker. Take much for a kicker to kind of be moved in and out, and you see a lot of movement with kickers during the season from a lot of teams. Unless you have a guy named Justin Tucker, then essentially you don't see that movement. So that is one thing. The opposite side also for Michael Badgley, and I won't necessarily say that this was the case in the San Fran game, but we've seen this where there's just some field goals that we don't attempt. Some of that probably is like, okay, that's Dan Campbell. That's the Lions just being aggressive, playing to how their approach is. And then the flip side is at times you could probably argue that, maybe they don't want to put him in that spot. spot. They don't love their odds of actually making that, especially when you go to some of those outdoor games like the San Francisco game where we had already seen a missed kick on the opposite side from Jake Moody. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't remember there being any talk about him like, oh, we weren't sure that he was going to make it. I'm sure the Lions will bring in a big leg kicker from somewhere, someone to compete. Maybe they draft someone, maybe they don't. We haven't necessarily seen that yet from the Lions, but we have seen different players brought in to compete here. So Michael Badgley, he's actually been a pretty good kicker for the Lions. Again, a season ago, made all of his extra points, had a couple of missed, and it was Riley Patterson who actually had some missed extra points, which ultimately led to that battle kind of picking back up during the season. They let go of Riley Patterson. They signed on Michael Badgley to the practice squad. It opened up a spot for Hendon Hooker when it was like, are they going to bring Hendon Hooker up or not? And he was brought on, but then through the practice squad, we had Michael Badgley, and then, of course, he had him through the postseason as well. So crazy ride for Michael Badgley, but it does make sense that he was brought back into the building for at least competition this offseason. Again, statistically, he's actually been pretty good. Maybe not the biggest leg, though, as his rookie season. He did make a 59-yard field goal. He has made a couple 50-plus yard kicks. 2022, much larger sample size. With the Lions alone, 8 for 10 between 40 and 49 yards, and then on 50-plus, 2 for 3. So, again, that's not where they want him to live. They've never really spoken of him as like a big leg kicker, maybe a little bit of a bigger leg than a guy like Riley Patterson, but that was really the competition. It was like, hey, they're both pretty darn good between 49 yards. It's like once we get outside of that, we don't always love to just take those opportunities. And that's where it seems to be a lot of the movement taking place, where when you have two kickers that don't necessarily have big legs and outside of 50, you're like, most spots I don't really like that. It seems like all of a sudden the extra points and really every other kick becomes massive because, for example, and I don't even know Tucker's stats, I'm sure they're insane, but if he missed an extra point or two, do anybody think they're going to cut Justin Tucker? Absolutely not, because that guy will go make it from 70. And that's kind of the difference here, is that kind of leaves you for the movement, but also it keeps now Michael Badgley in the building, where even if he wasn't the starter coming in, at some point if you needed him, could you trust him? Yeah, and he'll have to continue to work, and they'll get to see him again. It makes tons of sense. And with that, I'm going to leave it right there, man. Get the news out to you. Maybe a little late. I apologize. I was on my way home, but here we are. Lions re-signing Michael Badgley on a 1-year deal. So welcome back, Michael Badgley, man. Make sure you click that top link in the description. Check out BetUS. You get a 125% match on your first 3 deposits. I'm out.